is Super Bowl Sunday, and if you're watching a baseball video podcast on Super Bowl Sunday, then man, you are a diehard fan of this show.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, by all means, call me Sully. There's my lower third. I have been a baseball podcaster. I've been a comedian, a television producer, a writer, a teacher, many different things. But I've been part of the Locked On Podcast Network for the last 6 years, and I can't wait to get this season started. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever the hell it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode, this Super Bowl Sunday, is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today, and you get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Yeah, so it's Super Bowl Sunday, and you're here watching. I know I see there's a couple of people already in the watching me live. You're like me. I'm still thinking about baseball. I know some of you are super into the game. I know I'm going to watch the game later. Some of you are. It's kind of like was it the NORAD when they watch Santa Claus's sleigh on Christmas Eve? Well, some people are doing that with Taylor Swift's plane from Japan to Las Vegas. I hope she makes it. There you go. But for the rest of you, we're just going to talk a little bit of baseball today. And let's, first of all, before we do anything else, because we're going to talk a little bit about Las Vegas, we're going to talk a little bit more about the A's. A couple of people have asked me, why are you always bringing the A's in this up? Because there's not a lot of other baseball news happening. You know, Montgomery's still unsigned. Bellinger is still unsigned. Blake Snell is still unsigned. If one of them signs with the team, then I'll say, wow, we got ourselves some news. But the biggest news is what the hell is happening with the A's, and we are going to be talking a little bit about that. By the way, I'm just jumping a little bit onto a different subject here. Blake Snell is available. Cubs. If you have a rotation of Snell, Jameson Taillon, Kyle Hendricks, Imanaga, and Snell, boom, you've won the division. Everyone's happy in Chicago. And if it costs you a couple of bad years with them towards the end, what do you care? You probably won a pennant along the way. If you think I'm wrong, let me know. First we do anything, we're going to do the trivia question. And I phrased my trivia question very specifically because I could have phrased it a little bit differently, and they would have involved different names. The trivia question is, what do the following Hall of Fame pitchers have in common? Walter Johnson, Catfish Hunter, Randy Johnson. What World Series feat did those three players all accomplish? Now, one of my regular listeners, who is Joel WA 384. And by the way, I found out that WA does not stand for Washington. Forgive me. His answer was they each recorded a win and a save in the same series. That is a phenomenal guess. It's incorrect, but it's a phenomenal guess. The closest one to get it, and I'll give it to Scott Campbell. He said each pitcher entered the deciding game of the World Series as a relief pitcher and clinch the World Series for their team. That's close enough. I'll tell you why it's close enough, because you're in the ballpark of what I was getting at. All three of those pitchers were starting pitchers who came into Game 7 of the World Series as a reliever. In the seventh game of the World Series, came in as a reliever and got the decision, got the victory for said game. Now, the reason why I'm phrasing it that way is to say clinching it in my mind means they were the pitcher on the mound to throw the final pitch. Catfish Hunter got the decision in Game 7 of the 1972 World Series. He got the win in relief, and Raleigh Fingers got the final out. Both Walter Johnson and Randy Johnson got the final out, and then the team won on a walk-off hit. The Muddy Rule hit in 1924, the Luis Gonzalez hit in 2001. Now, I had to phrase it that way because I could have also included Grover Cleveland Alexander, who came out of the bullpen and earned the save in the 7th game of the 1926 World Series. And if Madison Bumgarner makes it to the Hall of Fame, we'll throw his name in the list because he came out of the bullpen to clinch Game 7 of the 2014 World Series. But anyway, I was just thinking about Hall of Fame starting pitchers who came out of the bullpen to win Game 7 of the World Series out of the pen. And there you would have Walter Johnson, Catfish Hunter, and you would have Randy Johnson. If Grover Cleveland Alexander had gotten the win, I would have included him, but he got the save. And so, anyway, there you go. There you go. I'll tell you what I'm going to do right now. In this segment here, I'm going to read a response to a response. I've been having an interesting back and forth with a listener and a subscriber to the show who goes by Rob L. Rob-L. And he has been writing to me via the YouTube page. And by the way, please subscribe. And if you like this show, tell your friends. We're talking baseball in the off season. We're talking baseball during spring training. We're always talking baseball here. And Rob L. a couple of days ago took me to task about a lot of the criticisms that I had about Las Vegas as a potential landing site, the mess that is going on in Las Vegas regarding the Oakland A's. And he was painting a much better picture and basically saying that I was painting things from a brush of watching things from the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm not disputing that. I want to get one thing right off the way because he responded back to my response. And I think that a back and forth like this is a fun thing to do because we're having straight talk about this. We're being open and honest and having straight talk about this. First of all, I just want to say, he said, hey, Sully, that's me. This is what Rob L. wrote to me yesterday afternoon. Thanks very much for considering my comments, even if you disagree with some. Those of us in Las Vegas have reduced following channels from Northern California because we often get blocked if we disagree with some of their talking points. And by the way, I just want to say right off the bat, I am all for disagreements. Disagreements are going to happen. I'm all for arguments, provided that we understand that I'm not going to attack someone who disagrees with me on someone like this. If it's a human rights thing, if it's thinking about bigotry, if it's thinking about hate, yeah, I'll attack you and I'll call you names and make you feel bad about yourself. But if it's about where the A's are going to play, we should be able to have disagreements and back and forths and differences of opinion without turning nasty and personal. And so he said, and by the way, Rob L., you've become one of my favorite listeners and one of my favorite watchers of the show. And I like the fact that we disagree on some things and that it's based upon our take on some things. And I also think, based on some of the things you wrote here, I am capable of changing my mind on certain things. First, let me go through his talking point, what he wrote. They're not Rob's talking about his takes. And then in the next segment, I'll address them. And I will also blame the O'Malley family for this whole mess. Believe me, it makes sense. We were talking about the teachers unions, and he said the teacher union involved with the PACs against the stadium is the NSEA, and it's much more than the bargaining group for Clark County, CCEA, which considers the stadium matter settled. Considering settled is different than supporting it. By the way, and he said education received the largest increase in the budget this past year. Now, I will give him credit because I was trashing Nevada having horrible funding for their educators. I know this as I am a union teacher here in California, and I get bombarded with notices from Nevada saying, please, please, we have a teacher shortage here. Teachers are leaving left and right because their pay is so horrible. They're still not great, but you're right. They have improved it a little bit. And some of the numbers I was looking at were a couple of years old, and they have improved over the years. It's gone from horrific to bad, but still, you're right. It is bad. You said all major Clark County unions support the stadium. No kidding. Okay, do you know what? I can't. All right, I'm not gonna go through them. I'm not gonna say my thoughts against them. He says all major Clark County unions support the stadium. I was saying that one of the reasons why the Vegas Golden Knights had been so successful was that it was an expansion team. It was their own team. It's Vegas's old team. It wasn't one they poached, and they were successful right away. He thinks that's overblown. He thinks the fact that they've been very good right out of the gate. They've gone to 2 Stanley Cup Finals, winning one of them in the time that they've been around. That's helped. He thinks the fact that they've been overblown, their expansion team is overblown. He was saying that remember the October 1 tragedy, the shooting took place only a few days before the opening, and it was a galvanizing moment of that city. Not too different from the Boston Marathon bombing and how that affected and galvanized the Red Sox that year, where they were supposed to be terrible. They wound up winning the World Series. He said, he says, I'm quite convinced had they relocated under the same circumstances, like a team had relocated there, like the Arizona Coyotes, he said they would have had the same reaction because the bond would have been equally strong. Well, we may never. Okay. Don't respond to it, Sully. Respond to the next segment. He is a Dodger fan, and he talks about how he will become an A's fan and support the local team, and he's spoken to others who feel the same way. Okay. He talks about how Las Vegas is a popular getaway spot from Southern California. Absolutely. The high-speed train will increase that. Absolutely. He said you don't suggest people come to watch baseball on a 2 to 3 day visit within walking distance would be a popular diversion from sitting casinos or laying in the pool. He agrees with me about skeptical about the Bay Area supporting 2 teams, and he feels that Fisher has not been given a fair shake because a lot of the reporting has been from the Bay Area, and that he has been painted basically in a bad brush. Okay. He said a lot of those things here, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those points, because I think you made some very, very valid points, and I still disagree with some of them. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home a winning trophy. It's going to do it for either the 49ers or the Chiefs. I don't know which one. And that's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motor Guaranteed Fit, your part is a guaranteed fit for your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Guaranteed Fit is available only to U.S. customers. Here's a reminder that Locked On has begun the first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube, and you can now find it on Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows like mine covering every league. Find the Locked On Sports Today channel now on Amazon Fire TV. I don't know why I turned into a prospector whenever I say ride or die. Excuse me, I scratched my nose there. Well, prospectors or 49ers are playing today. Hey, we got a comment in here. Justin Lamas, who is doesn't have to prove his loyalty to this show because he's watching me on Super Bowl Sunday morning. Random fact: Andy Messersmith and Catfish Hunter both pitched in Game 1 of the 1974 World Series, both influential figures in the abolition of the reserve clause and the inventions of free agency. Don't I know it? I'm working on a couple of writing projects, including one about Catfish Hunter's foray into free agency. Yes, and Catfish Hunter came out of the bullpen to get the save in Game 1 of the World Series that year. Okay, let me just sort of break down some of my thoughts of this Rob L. Because, first of all, I agree with some of what you're saying. And this is why you have a back and forth. And here's one thing I am not going to do. And I may have been guilty of this before, and it may have been wrong. You are a sports fan in Las Vegas. I'm not. Now, we've had the hosts of Locked On Vegas Golden Knights on here, and they've been, he's been very, very forthright of saying his enthusiasm of having Major League Baseball in Las Vegas and has pointed to the success for the Golden Knights. Oddly, our illustrious host of Locked On A's is a native of the Bay Area, but lives in Las Vegas. So you think he would be thrilled about this, but he's actually not. But I am not going to tell you your fandom. And I've also been very quick to defend fan bases like those in Tampa Bay, those in Miami, those in Oakland, who constantly get trashed because of the attendance issues. And I say the fans who do show up, who do support their team and do love their team, are some of the best and most loyal fans in all of baseball, because they're not going there because it's cool and hip and the place to be seen, and their very existence is questioned. So if you're a Vegas fan and looking forward to this, and Rob, I hope you do become an A's fan. I hope you do put your Dodger hat aside, put on the A's hat, and support the team. It's a team with a phenomenal history and a lot of fun facts part of it. I mentioned the teachers. As I said, they've gone from grotesque to merely bad. I can only go by what I read, and whether or not they think it's a settled matter or something they want to protect, that's fine. I mentioned all major Clark County unions support the stadium. No kidding. You're trying to tell me all of the unions who are going to be sending people to build a giant new structure support this thing with all the jobs that's going to create? I'm not going to dispute that one. We'll never find out if the Vegas hockey fans would have embraced a team like I bring up the Arizona Coyotes. And by the way, our good buddy Miller Thomas is going to be on tomorrow's show, and he covers the Arizona Coyotes, who basically play in a college skating rink at this point. They have to be moved somewhere. That's a calamity. And no offense to the hockey fans in Arizona. It's just not working there, and sometimes it doesn't. It would be interesting to see if that would have worked out, if there would have been the same excitement. They were the first in. That's, I think, no small part is they were the first team in. And it was the first chance for Vegas fans to say, we got a team. This is our team. We'll never find out. We will never find out, because the Vegas Golden Knights have been a remarkable success, both at the box office and on the ice, since their creation. We will see how the loyalties of fans will change. Hasn't changed in Miami. Hasn't seemed to change in Tampa. Hasn't seemed to change in Arizona. Yes, there are Diamondback fans and Rays fans and Marlin fans. Of course there are. But they're not at the numbers that everyone thought they were going to be. We will see. As for people wanting to leave the casino and the swimming pool to go catch the ball game, I think a big part of it has to do with who they're playing. If you're from out of town and you're a big Giants fan and the A's are playing the Giants, or if you're from New York and they're playing the Mets or the Yankees or whatever, sure, you're going to show up. I have a hard time seeing how this is going to build up a big fan base for the locals, especially when your example is from people from out of town wanting to see their team play. And you mentioned about the fact that skeptical of the Bay Area having two teams. Yeah, and I'll talk about that in the third segment because you can point to that going all the way back to the 1950s. And I think, by the way, I can't make this any clearer. It has sailed. The ship has sailed. The A's are no longer in Oakland. They're gone. My question is not about whether they should stay in Oakland. Whether I want them to or not, that ship has sailed. My question is about, is this the right place for them to go? And as for Fisher, giving him a fair shake, call me crazy, and I've been called a lot worse. But I've seen front row living in the Bay Area, him not giving people a fair shake, him not being open and fair, him letting the Coliseum crumble, him letting the team's payroll go to practically zero. I've seen him basically intentionally turn the A's into something crumbling beneath them when a little bit of money invested in the stadium, a little bit of money invested in the team, a little bit more, whether they could have stayed in Oakland or they could have worked something out in San Jose, whatever it was, I've seen him not be forthright and straight. So he hasn't earned the benefit of the doubt with me. If you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, fine. If you say he's been lusting over Vegas and this is what he wants, great. Every time the A's have moved somewhere, whether it was from Philadelphia to Kansas City, from Kansas City to Oakland, it's not looked pretty. And I don't see anything different because of the ownership. If it was a different ownership, you may have me listening. And I want to make this completely clear before we go to the final segment. And this is not just to my new friend Rob L., but to everyone. I want the Las Vegas A's to succeed. I want them to be an overwhelming success because it's good for baseball if a team succeeds in a market. I don't think Las Vegas is the best market for a new team. That's my whole point. But if they do go, I am not rooting for them to fail. If they go, and it's still an if, because they don't have a stadium. They don't have it set up. They're still talking about playing in Sacramento and Utah, and they're still not sure where the hell the thing is going to be built. I want it to be a success. I just think their chances of success are better elsewhere. Hey, in just a matter of hours, it is going to be time for the Super Bowl. Is it Super Bowl 58? I don't know, whatever LVIII is. But I think you need to go take your money and throw down your bets and use FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because this is the right time to sign up. And this is Super Bowl Sunday. What better way to end the football season with a W? And right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. And you can bet not just on who's going to win, but who's going to score the most points, who's going to get the first touchdown, all different things, all great props and more. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick that winning field goal. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Quick reminder, Locked On Sports Today. It's the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. You can find it now on Amazon Fire TV. They cover 24/7 sports stories from local experts and the national shows, like me. Find Locked On Sports Today channel now on Amazon Fire TV. I haven't done a What If show in a little bit. I'm doing one this Friday about the A's, by the way. But I will say this. You can throw all of this back to the Senators. I'm wearing my Senators shirt today. The Senators wanted to move in the 1950s. They were flopping and floundering, and the Baltimore Orioles were cutting into their gate. It was not working out, and the Senators saw there was no team in the 1950s were playing in California, and you now could take cross-country flights. You could get those done in a day. You have to stop off. So the idea of putting a team in Los Angeles was possible. And the Washington Senators wanted to move to LA. And they were whining and dining Los Angeles City Council members during one of the World Series in the 1950s. And they decided to take them to a game at Ebbets Field, one of the World Series games. And to get them in the mood for baseball, to have the Senators move across the country to play in Wrigley Field, Los Angeles, which was the home of the Pacific Coast League Angels. And the Senators were going to move. And they were working it out and making it work. Now, the only way a move to a team in California could work would be have a second team in California also move. That way, you would not have it be a cost-prohibitive flight to Los Angeles and back. You'd be able to go to LA and San Francisco and be able to hit both of the markets. The team that was the most likely to move and was lusting after California were the Kansas City A's. The A's had moved from Philadelphia to Kansas City when Connie Mack finally relinquished control of the team. And the Johnson family owned them. And it was a huge conflict of interest because the Johnson family also owned Yankee Stadium, which is one of the reasons why the A's and Yankees made so many trades that were beneficial to the Yankees in the 50s. But I digress. If the Senators had moved to Los Angeles, all evidence pointed to the Athletics to be the other team to move to California. You would have had the Los Angeles Senators and the San Francisco Athletics. The Senators would have played at Wrigley Field, and the Athletics temporarily would have played in Seal Stadium, and chances are they would have built a new ballpark on Candlestick Point, which is a disaster. Instead, the Dodgers found out, the Dodgers who were looking to have a new domed stadium built in Brooklyn, and the city of New York and Robert Moses, look up who he was, countered with a new outdoor stadium in Flushing Meadows, Queens for the Dodgers. They couldn't agree. The Giants were going to move. The Giants were on their way to Minnesota. No one was going to games at the Polo Grounds, even though they had Willie Mays. But when the Dodgers, in their frustration of not getting the stadium they wanted, heard that there were people in their building talking to the Senators about a move, intercepted them and said, no, you don't want the Senators. You want the Dodgers. The Dodgers are a prime team, a pennant-winning team. Hell, you're in our stadium watching the World Series. If you wanted to see the Senators at that time, you had to go to Broadway and see the play Damn Yankees, which is a play about how bad the Senators were. You can look it up. That's not a made-up thing. And the Dodgers said, how about us? And Los Angeles' eyes lit up, said, we could have the Dodgers? And so they worked out a deal with the Dodgers. But as it turned out, they needed that second team to move to the West Coast, and it had to be a National League team. So instead of the A's moving to San Francisco, you had the Giants moving to San Francisco. Ultimately, the Senators moved to Minnesota, where the Giants were thinking of moving. But if that had happened, you would have had the San Francisco A's, you would have had the Los Angeles Senators, you probably would have had the Flushing Queens Dodgers, and the Giants were playing in Minnesota, and chances are no team moves to Oakland. Because people were wondering, can the Bay Area support two teams? Back when Charlie Finley moved them there. And the A's had their moves blocked where they were thinking about Dallas, or thinking about Atlanta. They were blocking them because they didn't like Charlie Finley. Well, if the A's were already in San Francisco, even if Charlie Finley wound up buying the team, they would have been the team of the Bay Area and not have to worry about anything. And we'd be out of this mess. Now it would be a very, very different history. But that's how fragile history was. If only the O'Malleys had agreed to move the Dodgers to Flushing, Queens, the A's wouldn't be in this mess. It's Jenga, folks. History is Jenga. You pull out the wrong block, it all collapses. Trust me, that made sense. By the way, let's go to the trivia question, which is, again, Las Vegas centered. Chris Bryant and Bryce Harper are natives of Las Vegas who have gone on to win the MVP. Here's the question. What Las Vegas native went on to win the Cy Young Award? A Las Vegas native went on to win the Cy Young Award. That's your trivia question for today. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Getting ready for Super Bowl Sunday. I know Taylor is on the flight from Japan watching this show. This has been Locked On MLB for the 11th day of February. It's too late to play the Super Bowl. 2024. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.